You're falling. Don't panic. What could you use to stop your fall? Think, which one of these items could you reduce fall damage with? Find out in this video teaching you how to do every MLG jump in Minecraft. Now an MLG jump is basically when you fall down and you place an item before you fall, or you use an item before you fall that makes you not die of the fall damage. And in this video I'm going to show you every single one of those that exists in Minecraft and how to do them all, as well as some important fall damage reducing tricks. So these are the main items that you can do an MLG jump with. The first ones I call one click easy. These ones I call one click side, and these ones are one click semi-effective. Then these ones are doable but incredibly difficult, and these ones are other things you can use to slow down your fall damage. We're going to start with the one click easy, as they're all done almost the exact same way. The first one and the most famous one is the water bucket. So you basically fall down and you place the water bucket right before you fall, so that you do not get any fall damage like I just did there. The next one you can do is the scaffolding, almost the exact same, but you crouch as you're placing it. But basically you just do the exact same thing, but just shift as you're spamming the right click key, and we did it right there. Absolutely no fall damage. And of course this works at a taller scale as well. You just have to be incredibly careful and make sure to be shifting as you're spamming right click. As if you're not shifting, what will happen is you'll place it down, but it will not stop any fall damage, as you are not able to crouch down through it. You'd hit it like a solid object. The third one click easy is a twisting vine. This is especially great in the nether as the water bucket does not work. But basically all you have to do is just fall down and place this on your way down as fast as you can, but it's rather difficult to do. So this is definitely another option as well. Of course, again, if you don't land on the side of the block, we can actually try landing where that twisting vine is this time to reduce our fall damage, and you can see that we did not die because it was right there. And so it's always good to use this if you can, especially since you can just get them in the nether really easily. Super good block to use for that scenario. And so you can use that one if you want. It also doesn't look too bad if you place it around if you get to pick it up again, as it's some nice natural foliage. The next item you can use really easily is a cobweb. These of course are harvested from shears and things like abandoned mine shafts or other structures that generate with the cobweb. This one is super straightforward like the others. You simply place the cobweb before you fall. It catches, you can just sort of slowly squirm out of it there. So that's quite a useful one to use as well. But of course cobwebs aren't that common to have. However, if you do have one, that's always a great choice. The next of these one click easy is the powder snow bucket, but it's kind of fun to have, and you could often have this when you're in high up places, sort of like where we are right now, where there is a lot of the powder snow already. So this one works just like the others. Place it down before you fall and it will stop your fall damage. An added benefit of this is that if you happen to have a large area of powdered snow that is near where you are, you can just fall into that. So for instance, if you're on a snowy slopes and you see some powdered snow on the mountainside, try and direct your fall to that area and you could reduce your fall damage that way, as this one works basically like water. And next we have the sweet berries, which I showed off in the intro there. And this one does have to be placed on grass, so it's a little bit harder to do. But again, it does work like all the others, and if you can place it down before you fall, then you're good. Problem is if you're hungry like I was there, you'll actually start to eat it instead of placing it down, but it does work just like the others do. Next we have the slime block. Now this one's been in the game for a long time, so the slime block does work a little bit differently than the rest of these do. Basically placing it down before we fall, when we land on it, we will bounce up in the velocity in the opposite direction, but if you shift when you're falling down, you will not bounce, so you could get hurt, so do not shift when placing this one down. But other than that, it's basically the same as all the other ones, but it does make this interesting bouncing effect. And of course you can insta-mine these as well, and just be aware of that shift. Finally, we have the last of the one-click easies, which is the ender pearl. This is probably actually the easiest MLG jump there is. Basically, just fall off whatever place you're going, and right before you hit the ground, throw your ender pearl. It will teleport you before you fall, although you will of course get some damage from the ender pearl damage. You will not actually die from the fall damage that's there. So that's definitely a really good one to have with you, especially considering the fact that it is so easy, and later game ender pearls are incredibly common. Now these ones I call one click side. It's the vines, the ladder, and the splash potion of slow falling. These are not very easy, but they are doable if you have them on you. Basically what you want to do is when you're falling down an edge, like let's say that edge there, you want to place it beneath you when you're falling like that. But you see I died there because I was at the wrong position on the ladder, but I definitely did hit that. So for instance, we can see here, if we fall down here and let's say landed on the right position on the ladder, it would stop our fall damage. Now with the vines here, it can do the exact same thing. Just again, placing it down in the right timing. So something even like that can stop our fall. Just be aware that when you're falling at really quick, fast distances, it can be hard to place that in time. Now with the splash potion of slow falling, it's similar because you need to have the slow falling before you actually hit the ground. So let's say something like this, we could throw it on the side. We got the slow falling, so when we hit on the ground there, we did not die. But it's imperative to have a sidewall like this, so when you hit the potion on the bit of the sidewall there, you can actually get that before you die. And of course, slow falling is probably one of the best ways in the entire game to avoid fall damage. Plus it's pretty fun to slowly float down and have a nice view when doing it. So the next group is the one-click semi-effective. The first of these is the honey block, and basically the only difference between these and the one-clicks is that with these they're not quite as effective as in the normal ones would be. So even if we successfully do the MLG jump, they basically will not fully stop the fall damage. Now of course the arrow is already quite hurt, but even let's say falling from this height, it would cancel out some of the fall damage. Like you see there was only 3 hearts instead of death, but definitely not incredibly effective. Still could save your life if you place it down in time. Next is the hay bale, which works really similarly, it being effective, but just not stopping all the fall damage. You see here, it hit here and I did not die of fall damage. So this can be a good choice as well, and hay bales are something you probably would have early game also, making it quite a good choice. And last is the bed, being somewhat effective, but again you can see here that just does not block off all that fall damage, but still something good to have if you have on your inventory, could definitely still save your life. Next are the difficult ones. There's the minecart, the saddle, and the chorus fruit. Now these ones are all also not very useful. So for instance, the chorus fruit, the trick of this is to eat it before you've fallen down for a long time. Now basically the way that it works is that if you're falling down and you get to a terminal velocity where you'd basically die if you hit the ground, the chorus fruit will not save you. But if you know you're going to fall before you actually fall off the edge, and you start eating the chorus fruit before you have fallen, then it'll save you. But in this scenario it just doesn't, because that fall damage is transferred. So let's say we finish eating this before we're off the edge all the way, you'll see it did save us. We also got to the bottom because we actually hadn't fallen enough for there to be much fall damage. So that can definitely be useful under certain circumstances, but under most it is not very useful. Now these other 2 ones are very difficult, borderline impossible. Basically you have to click twice before you fall, so I call these ones 2-click difficult. So for instance here you'd have to place down the minecart and get in it. We actually did place it down and get in it, but it wasn't fast enough, so we took the fall damage. But technically you can do that if you click so fast. You can get in that minecart and get in there before you take fall damage. In fact, I think we just did that there, although I'm not sure. But yeah, more or less that is something you can do if you happen to be falling near a minecart track, and you can get in there fast enough, just like I'm doing here, because I'm not taking any fall damage, and I'm placing that before I do the full fall. So this next one is exactly the same. It requires a saddle, and you need a tamed horse where you're falling. So you can basically right click twice, put on the saddle of the horse and get on it as quickly as possible. Now I did take fall damage there, but if you technically did do it fast enough, you would not take fall damage, making that what could be a good strategy. One last of these double clicks you can do is with the boat. Basically placing down the boat and getting in it before you get hurt. However, this one is incredibly hard to reproduce, almost impossible. But if you have a boat that's, let's say, already placed down, and you get in it before you die, that could be something that is quite useful. So that's every main MLG, but here's some other interesting survival strategies for large falls. The first one is Totems of Undying. Now, of course, this stops a lot of different types of damage, but fall damage being one that definitely is helped by it. So when we fall down here, it takes effect and we did not die. The second thing we can use is a potion of slow falling, not a splash potion, but just a normal potion. We can drink it before or during our fall, and then we can use that to not die when we're falling down with it. The next thing we can use is an elytra, and this combined with slow falling is even cooler, but you can use this when you're falling off the edge of something to basically right click and just to be able to gently swoop down instead of dying. And finally, I would say feather falling on your boots can be something that is incredibly useful and will save your life in most fall damage related death scenarios, as feather falling is just such an amazing enchantment. Basically having the ability to reduce almost all fall damage to very little, unless you fall from an incredibly high height. This is definitely a really important thing to have. And also with elytra, of course, it doesn't always save you. For instance, doing like a nosedive like this could hurt you if you didn't have the slow falling potion. So definitely to be aware of that as well. So in a scenario like this, we could fall off the edge, be free falling, but then we can put on elytra, press space to activate it, and then we're flying, and now we're saved. But of course, if we hit something at a very extreme velocity like this, we can still get very hurt or die from the fall damage. Now, a lot of the issues people have with MLG jumps are things like how do you actually click fast enough to place down the item, and what are the methods of doing that. And I'll show you those right now. Now, the first one is literally just to spam as fast as you can. That doesn't really work for a lot of people, and let's say on Bedrock Edition, that can be even more difficult to press those buttons really quickly. So generally, I would just say spam click as fast as you can. But something you can do if you are on Java Edition is go to your controls, go to keybinds, and change this to some kind of a number or letter. So let's say N or M or whatever you want, doesn't matter. And then once you have that on there, basically holding this key will activate placing and breaking things a lot of times. So for instance, in this scenario, we can place and put it back down literally 20 times a second. So falling off the edge here and holding the N key can technically save us. Now, of course, we just, fell into some water there, so that's not exactly the right scenario. But let's say that we did it right over here again, and we fall off the edge and we hold the N key. That water can place down in time, but as you saw, I did die there, so it's not always super effective. But if you can get into that crazy hyper-clicking mode by just having your keybind be to one of these things, and if you're falling from a really far distance, you could technically, while you're falling, quickly switch your keybind to something, but that's not super realistic. So if you do have your keybind switched, if you think you're about to die from fall damage, that can definitely be a good thing to try. So right here, we'll be able to place down the water before we die right there. Can definitely be very useful for MLG jumps, not just water, can be literally any of the items there. So I definitely try that if you're having some troubles. The other thing you can do is basically a method to click faster is known as drag clicking. Now, I'm not really good at it. In fact, I don't even think I can drag click, but basically what it is, if you're on a mouse, you can sort of move your finger along the mouse as you click and really just try and shake your finger as fast as possible to try and click as fast as possible, and just to do that right before you hit the ground. That can actually be quicker than 20 times a second, so being even more effective than, let's say, rebinding one of your keys. Also, if you do rebind, you can just press the reset key to fix that, but more or less that's another thing you can do. So let's say we could try it right here. We can just click as fast as possible, and we were able to place that down before we got any fall damage. That's enough of MLG jumps. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.